All right, I probably should have started this video earlier, but I figured it might help somebody. This is a Delta DC580 planer, and I'm in the process of rebuilding it and putting a helical head in. There's not much documentation online. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of these out there, but the head for these is available from Helix, which is pretty cool. And yeah, for the most part, it's been a relatively straightforward process. Basically, the outfeed rollers here, the infeed rollers here. Then there's a chip breaker that goes in here kind of towards the back, and everything comes off from the top, more or less. I've got all the parts here. Some of them have been cleaned up. But, you know, essentially you can kind of keep track of which springs go where. Everything kind of bolts in from the bottom. This is just loosely presented in there for now. You know, in order to disassemble all this stuff, basically, more or less, you have to take out the belts, the chains, the gears here, just so that you have enough room. We took out the tensioner for the chain that was there, just to have enough room to kind of access everything. I've been looking at the gearbox, and it doesn't look like it has any sort of provision for changing the oil in it. Although I haven't looked too hard. I'm debating whether I'm gonna take this apart further to investigate. But anyways, the main point of this video was, I think the most interesting part that I ran into was, let's go over here. Let's look at the infeed roller. So this planer has a segmented infeed roller, which is pretty cool. And from watching Mike Farrington's video on his planer restoration, I was expecting like springs and stuff to be in here. And when I took it apart, I discovered that it has this like very clever and strange mechanism that uses these tapered plugs. These are like rubber plugs, and that's what basically gives it some of the compliance that it has for these to kind of move around. And you know, we took them out. This is one of the original ones, and they're pretty hard. You know, obviously I don't really have a way of knowing what durometer these were, but you know, my old man, he was helping me take it apart, and he's like, hey, let's look on McMaster. Let's see if we can find replacement ones. And lo and behold, we sure did. It's some really strange measurement. It's like 1730 seconds on one end and something else on the other end. But I guess there's like a standard size, and these are size 0 tapered rubber plugs. So I ordered 2 packs, which is 80, which is exactly what you need. And I'm kind of giving it a try right now, comparing the old one. I put some of the old ones in here and some of the new ones in here. And as best as I can tell, I cleaned all these up in the ultrasonic cleaner. But as best as I can tell, basically, the way that they were installed originally was basically 2 tapered plugs going this direction, up and down, and then 2 going the opposite direction to basically help it center on the shaft. And you can kind of see the, you know, the movement. I mean, it's tough, but it's, you know, it's there. Anyways, I will post a link to these plugs, but I think for the most part, this is going to work. These definitely feel a little bit squishier than the originals, but my guess is that those are, you know, a couple decades old, and who knows where they've been sitting, and they've just kind of hardened up. I remember initially when before I disassembled this, I was trying to move these around, and they had almost no play. So anyways, not to say that this is the actual solution. It may be that these end up being too soft. I don't know. But my guess is that they're going to be fine. But we'll see. right now, I'm going to work on getting this back together. Yeah, generally speaking, like I said, there's really not a lot of, you know, strange stuff in terms of replacing this cutter head. I did put these pillow blocks in backwards the first time because I'm a dumbass, but you know, you can easily get them out with a puller. And I used, you know, a little bit of cold and heat to get them in and out. Yeah, there's nothing really crazy about this job in general. This cutter head is massive and weighs a ton. Putting tape on it will definitely spare your flesh. Yeah, but like I said, we'll... Oh, and I guess the other thing is I sent the outfeed roller off to Western Roller to get resurfaced, which is an awesome service. You know, obviously it's kind of impossible to get new parts for these things anymore, and they would probably cost an arm and a leg, and they were super reasonable. It was about 170 bucks as of, you know, today, in terms of putting new urethane on the outfeed roller. And I think it's the same urethane as these wheels that I got from them for my power feeder. So I think it's going to be awesome. Probably have that in a week or two, and we can finish putting this thing back together. I've got a few upgrades to put on it. I got a remote planer readout, so like height gauge, which will be nice. And then the helical head, which will be awesome. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I've been scouring around for this part because it just annoys me of how ugly it looks. And I managed to find one from a Suzuki that seems like it's a very close fit, but it's coming from India, and who the hell knows when it's going to get here. These are also kind of busted, but I really don't care. They're not going to really matter too much. But yeah, we'll see. I think after this, the planer should have a quite nice upgrade. The only other thing I was going to mention is I've seen posts, people asking about like the weight of the oil on these things, and this is basically what the bearings look like for the infeed and outfeed rollers. So it's just the bronze bushing pushed in here, and it's got a little oil cup, and you can see it's got a little oil feed hole. I really don't think it matters too much what the hell you put on there. I remember I stressed out trying to find the right weight of oil, but I would imagine even putting any sort of 3-in-1 or something like that, something that's non-detergent, will be just fine. And thankfully these look like they're in great shape. The nice thing would be, I'm guessing, is like if they were kind of wallowed out or too worn out, those would be super easy to press out and, you know, have some new ones made, which is a really nice design. And even on the shafts themselves, they could probably be, you know, reground if they needed to. But yeah, overall, pretty, like, it's not a simple job. Like, it definitely helps to have two people to be able to think through it and pick stuff up and etc. So thankful that my dad was here to help me with that. But, you know, other than just a bunch of stuff to take out, there's really not a lot to it. So hopefully once this is all done, I'll post another video and I'll show it in action. But otherwise, it's an amazing machine. Really highly recommend it if you see one for sale. I've only ever seen this one for sale. And, you know, just the compact footprint of it is really quite nice if you have a smaller shop. Anyways, hope this helps somebody out there. If you have any questions, just let me know. All right, a little update. This is a giant pain, but I think I'm starting to develop a method. You can see in this one, there's kind of a big gap. That's where this collar kind of sits here. And I'm kind of assuming that, you know, if I keep having too many of those gaps, by the time I get all the way to the end, I'm going to be so far off. So here's kind of the technique that I've developed. So we have one of the gears out there for support, and then we take another one of our gears and we put it in. The one thing that I think I did this by accident. I'm not sure if there's a way to do this wrong, but you want to make sure that the compliance, basically, like if you see here, this thing cannot rotate towards me, but it can rotate a little bit towards the front, which is where the tapered plug is giving it some compliance. So you want to make sure that that is aligned with the drive side. So this is going to be, if you're facing the machine, on the left side of the machine where the motor side is, and the infeed rollers are going to spin this way. And you want the compliance to be spinning this way, right? So you want the tapered bushings to be basically on the front side, not on the back side. Otherwise, all you're hitting is basically metal and kind of defeating the purpose of the compliance of the feed mechanism, I think. Hopefully I don't regret this and have to rebuild it, but if I do, oh well. Anyways, so the technique, I've also made sure to tape off both of these ends. These are the ends that ride inside of those bronze bearings that I showed you earlier, and definitely want to make sure that these are not scored in any way. This is going to be impossible to do with one hand, so I'm just going to kind of show you. But basically, I keep one out here to give me some space, and I'll push this one almost all the way in. And the best tool I've found is a flathead screwdriver. And then if you can think about this, these things are tapered, right? So I'm putting in 2 going with the small end pointing this way and 2 with the small end pointing this way. And effectively what I'm doing is I'm trying to get 2 of these basically to start going this way, and I push them in as much as I can. And the screwdriver basically lets you kind of poke it in there and like basically let it like slide as far back as you can. But basically once you push in this way, you'll have a little bit of a gap still, and you can try and come from this side basically with the screwdriver and pry in this direction a little bit to get the thing to release so that you can get it as far back that way as possible. And then what happens is with the plugs that are tapered this way, you're effectively locking it into position, right? So like you wanted to get it as far left as you can with the taper plugs going this way, which is going to effectively limit the movement to some extent. And then this one, or I guess the plugs on this side, you're basically using them to squeeze the gear into position, right? So then you can come in with the screwdriver from this side, and then the other ones kind of like push them along. And that seems to be getting me much better gaps than whatever the hell I was doing and struggling in the beginning. And like my hands are already tired, and this is taking me like 40 minutes of progress. But I think this method should work. I was also kind of looking at whether I should put any sort of lubrication in here. I didn't see any signs of lubrication, and you have to be careful with, some lubricants will degrade rubber. Like I was thinking, oh, maybe I could shove some 3-in-1 in there, but that will definitely eat away the rubber because of the solvents that it has in it. So I guess some silicone grease would be safe in here, but I also don't want it to get all gummed up. So I think I'm just going to leave it like this. And worst case scenario, I got to tear it apart and do it all over again, but we'll see. All right, see if I can show you a little bit of a step-by-step. Basically, this is how far I am so far. It's been, I don't know, an hour or so. It's a pain in the ass, but anyways, I've got this one here kind of holding things up, and this is how I'm starting. Basically, I've got 2 plugs on this side, and I'm going to basically scoot it over as much as I can, and then use my flathead to pry kind of in here and just push the plug in until I'm just as close of a gap that I can. Once I do that, Then I grab the whole assembly, put it vertically, and I put the other two plugs on the other ends, and I shove them in basically from this direction. And as you shove them in, it starts to kind of tighten it towards that direction, and basically gives you, I think, what should be the proper installation. We'll find out soon enough. All right, here's the completed assembly. Definitely got easier as I went along in terms of practice. Really just takes some technique kind of figuring it out, but pretty happy with it. They all, it's funny, almost in the last one I almost messed up and put one of the gears in the wrong direction. So just got to check it as you go, make sure that they're all spinning towards the front. And now I'm looking at, I just cleaned these up a little bit. I didn't want to throw these in the ultrasonic cleaner just because that probably has a few decades worth of oil in it, and probably a good thing. This looks fine. Can't really feel the scoring marks. This also looks, the other side looks just the same. So before I wrap up for the day, I'm gonna grab this thing out and I'm gonna try and drop in the feed assembly, and we'll call it a day. Next time, start putting springs and things back together. But yeah, almost there. Well, I thought I had all this figured out and it made sense in my head when I was putting it together. But now, I'm not so sure. Currently, the compliance is basically spinning this direction. It's really hard to do, but you can kind of see it that direction, right? And the feed rollers roll this way. And I can't really figure out whether it should be in the same direction or whether it should be opposite. My thought process is that as this is pushing it this way, which is causing the force of, so this is pushing the piece of wood backwards, which is doing this, which is opposite of the direction of compliance right now. And as it goes this way, I feel like this is twisting and grabbing this way. I don't know. I can't. I need to sleep on this.